Pursue us, you will be caught. Resist us, you will be killed. And your precious secretary will disavow any knowledge of your actions.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Omega Files. Tonight, we're going to talk about Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror and, the fourth episode of Series 12. And one of the things I do want to address before we move forward is the fact that I'm really touched that they, decided to pick this particular, historical figures, to touch on, because it's something we've never seen before in Doctor Who, where, we have Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, those particular historical figures have never been featured before. But the thing about Tesla is there was just so many things, so many great ideas that, he came up with that we later on picked up. It's like this guy was literally at least a century ahead of his time. And I'm just so glad they picked this particular person to touch upon because, so many brilliant ideas. But once again, thanks to our, well, I'm going to have to say it. Everyone sit down. You might cringe, Connor. The evils of capitalism.
Yeah.
All right, because one thing they didn't touch on in the episode, I want to say this before we move forward. J.P. Morgan, as they mentioned in this episode, he dropped Tesla because he found out that his system of electricity, had it been successful, would have been free. Meanwhile, Edison had this bright idea of stringing up wires and charging money for electricity. Therefore, guess who got the backing? But speaking of backing, I want to hear your guys' views on this episode. So let's start at the top this time. We're going to start with Paul.
Hello. Yeah, I enjoyed this one again. I thought, interesting story. It's also something, like the Tesla. Yeah, I mean, I'd heard of him, but I've not. I didn't know much about him before today. Good episode, entertaining. I like the Silurian reference. Quite good. What else? Oh yeah, the mention of the AC and the DC just made me think of Look Around You when they said AC DC. It's heavy metal. And what else have I got here? I like the mispronouncing it. Slimurian. That was quite funny. Robert Glenister played a good part today. Good performance from him. What else have I got? Oh yeah, when Jodie gets the matches out though to burn that circle, I was so hoping for her to say, "These are my everlasting matches." Going back to Eighth Doctor, that'd have been good. The monsters I thought were brilliant. They were really scary monsters. And I'm not going to attempt to name, but who played the Queen, who was also Rani and Sarah Jane, she did a good performance. And something I wonder if Ryan and Yaz is going to end up together because they're that hug. I thought, but yeah, good one overall. I'll pass it on to the next one now.
All righty then. Okay, moving forward, let's head on over to Elijah.
Hey, so one thing that Doctor Who does very well is historical stories. And once again, this was a really great story. I liked the mention of the call from Mars, that Tesla had heard these readings from Mars. I thought that was cool how they kind of intertwined that. Let's see. I liked how they actually started the story with Tesla and didn't have the Doctor just kind of show up and then wander to meet him. It was kind of cool having a story where the Doctor just pops up right in the middle of the action. I also like Graham had a line which is kind of ironic, talking about the rodeo when just this week, he talked about how he broke his back. And then also the Skithra were okay. They kind of reminded me of the what are they called? Rachnos. It's kind of funny because the queen of the Skithra, who also played Ronnie, she's actually dating Sasha Dewan. So that's pretty funny. And then it's kind of cool that an immigrant from Croatia came to America, to start living a new life for himself and had all these great ideas. It's all a really good story.
So let me get this straight. Ronnie is dating the master. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. All right. Let's move on over to DWC.
Yeah, pretty much like everyone has said, this was a good episode. It is a good historical episode, and Tesla, I don't really know much about him. Graham, could you please mute yourself? And the Skipper, for the most part, I liked them, but there was that one part in the street where I was thinking, CGI is a bit naff here or something like that. And but also highlighting Edison. Everyone knows the name Edison. We know about the light bulbs, all this. We didn't really understand anything about how he was a greedy man, wasn't he? Well, they certainly portrayed him as a bit of a not much of a nice guy. So that's something we didn't know. And as Brian has pointed out, he was trying to use it for a capitalist reason more than anything else. Overall, it was definitely an entertaining story, and it's certainly a step up from last week. And it is one. And Jodie was absolutely great in this one. Again, she's still doing a lot better than she did last series, and this has once again made me look forward to more.
All righty. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's head on over to Bo.
Yeah, I thought this episode was really good. It was definitely better than the previous one, in my opinion. The Doctor, Ryan, and Yaz were in top form as usual. Not only was this episode about Nikola Tesla, but Thomas Edison was in it as well. To me, Thomas Edison is kind of more familiar. So I think I've heard of him before, but I haven't really heard of Nikola Tesla until this episode. I thought that the skits were really good, especially the Queen. I thought her performance was really good. I like that they used one of Nikola's inventions to defeat the Skithra. Yeah, it was a really good episode, in my opinion.
All righty then. Okay, let's move on forward. Let's head over to AJ.
Hello there. How are you guys? This episode for me was a bit of a mixed bag. I like the whole Tesla and Edison thing. I just wish there was a bit more of them arguing with each other back and forward a bit more. The first time I sort of heard of Tesla was in the movie The Prestige with Hugh Jackman, where they show, Tesla and his invention and how Hugh Jackman's character uses it. The Skithra, very reminiscent of the Arachnos, like Elijah said, which I thought was cool. They're both arachnid species, so that's cool. Still a bit iffy about Jodie, her character flipping from one thing to another quite quickly, going from mock serious to completely goofy. I know is supposed to be a character trait sometimes, but it's used too much, I think. Overall, the best part of the episode was the whole, Tesla and Edison thing, but I'll get more into that later on this.
There we go. Let's head on over to Connor Farley.
Yeah, definitely an improvement on last week for sure. Once again, I think it's kind of a case of that Chibnall's historicals are going to end up maybe being the best episodes in the series. One thing I will give him credit for, and I noticed pretty early on, really, as part of the viewing experience, was just how immersive his historicals can be with all the production design and the outfits and things. He doesn't let any details slip so that it takes you out of that time period. So it gives you quite an immersive experience, really, and I think that lends itself to the story. Like AJ said, I wouldn't say it was my first introduction to Tesla, but one of my first. And it's a brilliant movie, The Prestige, where David Bowie plays Tesla. He's a really interesting guy, and to be honest, as Brian opened the podcast with, I'm happy as well that they've finally tackled this time period and this rivalry, because this is sort of one of the great rivalries of human history, really. Edison and Tesla. Like I said, I liked the outfits, I liked the production design. The acting overall actually was quite good. I thought Goran Viznik was perfectly cast in this role. He's always a great actor, so it was no surprise to see that he was great. Robert Glenister as well as Edison was fantastic. I think them two really made the episode. Bradley Walsh, I thought, though, out of the TARDIS team, was the single MVP of this episode. He was brilliant. He really, like, this might be one of his best episodes yet, maybe in his in the top three. I like how he was kind of really giving it to Edison. Edison was being the sort of genius who was patronizing everyone around him, and Bradley Walsh or Graham, who you wouldn't perceive really to be a businessman, was kind of really giving it to him at points, and it was great to see that kind of friction. Even Jodie, to be honest, was better. I thought that she still, to me, it's kind of, I think it's a case of, I've accepted now that maybe she doesn't have the screen presence of people like Capaldi or Tom Baker, so she's never really going to be outstanding or the sort of standout of the episodes most of the time. But it seems like she really comes into her own when she's got an equal. For example, Tesla. I thought the scenes with her and Tesla were the best things. And also, I think that when she's explaining things, even though exposition doesn't always seem to work, it can sometimes come across as a bit of an exposition dump. And she's explaining like what these contraptions are or the history of like a particular object. I think that's where her Doctor really seems to meld together, and it shines as a performance. Angel Mahindra, I think is how you pronounce the name. She was brilliant. I actually thought that even though I think that the prosthetics could have been a little bit better around the eye area, her performance was equally as good. I think that she was very Rachnos. It was there was like the head twitches that kind of like the Rachnos did as well, which is probably just something that she decided to do for the character and didn't mean anything to, like the Ood were related to the Sensorites or anything. I don't think that it's going to end up being anything like that. But she brought an interesting spin to a Doctor Who villain, I think. The music actually was very strange. It kind of seemed to have two different kind of tones. You had the usual Akinola sort of fanfare during the scenes between Tesla and the Doctor and etc. But when it got to the Skithra parts, it really ramped up, and that again kind of engaged you in the story. So I think that Akinola was kind of doing something a bit different, a bit experimental with this episode, and it worked for the most part. So yeah, to be honest, overall it is a step up from last week, and another great historical for the Chibnall era, really.
Alrighty, okay, let's keep on moving. Let's head over to Philip Archer.
Hello. I will echo everybody's sentiments in various parts, but I liked how it started off with it's saying, rather than saying night terrors, Doctor Who night terrors, it's like Nikola Tesla's night terror, like an opening movie front. It was like, oh, okay, so maybe he's going to be the one that's doing the narration behind it, but obviously it's not the case. I like that. The only thing that jarred me with this story all the way through, everyone else manages to put on a costume to fit the period. Why doesn't Jodie? It would have been nice to see her out of the Doctor Who costume and put her in a period costume, because we still know she's a Doctor. Her face hasn't changed. So it would have been better if they did that with her. My favourite character, would have to be Robert Glenister's, the other guy. What's his name? Not Tessa. I can't remember his name now.
Edison?
Who?
Thomas Edison?
Edison. He did a bang-up job. And there was an earlier part where I kind of thought he was actually American. He's not American, but he pulls off a great American accent. I thought, well done him. The guy that played Nikola Tesla, I could see it. I could see him, because at school I used to look at photos of him and learn about him. He looks a spitting image of Tesla. more so than Robert Glenson looking like Edison. The story itself was okay, but I think the story around the skiff riff was a bit lame because it's like, oh, I've broken down. I need someone to help me fix my ship. Okay, well, could you not sort of like push the ship forward in time and go to a period where it's a bit more advanced rather than using technology that doesn't really work that well? So it's a bit stupid. And then when she doesn't go her own way, I'm going to blow up your planet if you don't give me what I want. Bit childish for that. But and as for the cast, everyone did well. I thought Jodie spoke too much in this episode. She was forever yakking on. I thought she must have books and books of lines to learn. So well done her on that part. The weakest of the companions would have been what's his name? I'm not going to say that word. Ryan. So because he didn't do much. He was just being an idiot again. Oh, did he invent Wi-Fi? Oh, did he invent? It's like, oh, come on, what do you not know? But overall, the episode was enjoyable. It's better. It's a lot better than last week's by a country mile. I hope it ramps up a bit more next week.
Okay, let's keep on moving. All right, next up, Graham.
I agree with Phil. This is a lot better than last week's. But at the same time, this is the same guy who found the Witchfinders fucking phenomenal. Whereas Alan Cummings, King, should have fucking annoyed the absolute crap out of me. I found him absolutely delightful. And the same thing happened here with Nikola Tesla and Edison. Historical can be hit and miss for a lot of people. This one, for me, was fine. It wasn't a base understage. It wasn't a typical historical. It wasn't even the good versus the bad. It was the case of, okay, this is your time period, and here is your problem. Who played Edison? Who was the fellow that played Edison? Help me out, folks.
Robert Glenister.
Robert Glenister done a good job. He obviously Edison would be the guy who gains the most notoriety for the invention and all the rest of it, and Nikola Tesla would be left in the dust. But that neither here nor there. This was quite good. Jodie Whittaker, she's fine in the lead role in this, much to the chagrin of Twitter and all the rest of it. I know she's not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm sorry, folks. Whenever her tenure's up, she is the Doctor. Whether you like it, love it, or hate it, whether it's in the writing or whether it's in her performance, she's going to have to fucking get on with it. Thank you, and I'll get on with more later. Thank you, folks.
Okay. Moving on, let's go to William.
Hey now, everybody. I'm going to agree with everybody here that this was a better episode than last week's. And it was sad to find out the true history about Tesla and what happens, you could say, after this episode, even though it's not a historical fact, because there was no aliens like that. I really wish the title would have been accurate, that everything that Tesla experienced was a nightmare instead of him facing it for real. Yeah, because I'm one of those that I'm not, when they hit historical episodes,
yeah,
they're not doing historical episodes. You always got a sci-fi element to it. So if you was going to use it, it would have been nice if Tesla was just having nightmares about the doctor dealing with the alien thing, and of course Edison, manipulated him to say, oh, he's a nut job, don't believe him, don't give him no money, like that. That would have been accurate like that, so that would have been cool. But the one thing that left me a little bit confused, well, I'm going to say confused, just it left me with a question was, why is it at the end of this story the doctor did not erase the memory of Tesla and Edison like she did in the two stories back, and erase their memories of seeing the TARDIS and all that? Because we know, like you said, Freedom, in before the start of that, historical, that Edison and Tesla competed against each other. That's an historical fact. So I don't understand, and since the doctor knows that, I don't know why she didn't erase that TARDIS knowledge and all that from them. That left me a little bit confused there. The actors did a great job playing their roles like that. Like somebody said earlier that like Ryan didn't do that much like that, but he is what he as the, he is part of the 3 companions. So so he's being used in certain ways. Now, whether it'd be nice to say maybe a companion was not in the story itself, like say they were busy doing something with their real life, with their family, or the job like that, it can happen. But we're only in the 4th episode of what is a 10-episode season, so we have to wait to find out how that is. But like I said in the beginning, this is better than last week's story. But I wish when they do historicals, they do it just straight historical without using the sci-fi element. That's my opinion. Because we haven't had one in such a long time on TV. While in audio, they've done historical stories without any sci-fi element, and we all talk about that when we do a review in Audio Who. So that makes no sense.
Sorry to interrupt, and that's my apologies, but I find it somewhat ironic that whether you love, loathe, or are very indebted to the Chibnall era, that as of right now, you're a season and a half in, and apparently, gone by the consensus, the historicals apparently seem to be the best episodes.
Yeah, I was going to pose that question to the panel anyway later. Is why they didn't erase their memories, considering they did with Ada Lovelace and Nora Khan back in the first 2 parts, but which was weird, like I said, because Nora Khan's going to be dead a year later anyway. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Okay, Texas Tim.
Yeah, this was much better. This was fine. I mean, it was fine episode. I agree that it's good that they attack something historical like this. And it's on the educational side. Like, I didn't know about this too much, and that's what they used to do with Doctor Who way back when it started, way back in the day. So it's good to see them doing that. To your point about any anti-capitalist message, Brian, see, this is an example of how you do that subtly. It's there if you catch it. It's not there if you don't. There's no speech at the end. There's nobody waving their finger in Edison's face, except Graham. But that was just because he was kind of pissed off or whatever, for whatever reason. But this is how you do that. I do think that this was a little bit too condensed. I mean, I don't know if it would have been better if it had an extra 15 minutes or something, or maybe I wouldn't say you wanted to do a 2-parter with this, but I mean, I do think it felt like it was they really had to explain too much. There was too much exposition throughout. So I mean, it was like boom, 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 and it could have benefited. This kind of story that tackles a historical subject like this could benefit from more time. So I do think that's one of its flaws. Otherwise, it's a good story. It's nothing great, I don't think. I think to compare to other historicals, I think it's better than Rosa, because I mean it did tell you about a historical event and the tragedy of Tesla. So I mean it did its job there. I agree with you 100%. This is why they shouldn't have had that ridiculous scene in episode 2 where she makes those 2 women that we've never heard of lose their memory about the events. Because if Tesla and Edison actually survived an alien invasion and weren't made to forget about it, I mean, in other words, that's why they shouldn't have done that. Because otherwise, you're gonna have to do that every story. It's like that's that episode, and we'll leave that in the past. But I'm just saying, this is an example of why you wouldn't want to do that. But otherwise, this is a step up. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just, I think it could have been better somewhat if it had a little more time to it. But that's always a problem.
Let's head on over to Josh.
I thought this episode was okay. It was just a little slow for me, maybe just because I didn't find the actual subject that interesting. But I would say I liked Tesla and all that because I didn't know that much about him, and it made me kind of feel really, really bad for him that he had all these ideas that basically wouldn't come to light until way, way, way later. It made me feel kind of bad, because in the episode it was people didn't really take him that serious and stuff. And I thought it was good how they did the parallel between the Doctor and Tesla, because that doesn't really happen that often, but they both seemed like that they were like outcasts kind of, and I like how they connected that part of it. But again, it was just kind of slow for me, and it was probably just the subject matter that really didn't interest me that much. As far as the aliens, they were okay. I kind of don't like usually when they mix aliens and historical like episodes, but I thought they did it well this time just because of how Tesla was already kind of out there as far as like you know, he was already kind of out there as far as like saying that he received messages from Mars and stuff like that. So I think the whole alien idea kind of fit. So I think it was it was above average for me, but it wasn't like anything amazing.
All righty. Okay, moving forward. Let's head over to Lady Neo.
Hi, everybody. I absolutely love this episode. It was amazing. Yeah, I was a little bit fast, and I do agree with Tim on somewhat, maybe a little more time, but within the time that was there, it was perfect. I love the chats with that the doctor had with Nikola. That was beautiful. Inventor to inventor. Come on, you can't go wrong with that. And come on, people. Yasmin, Thomas Edison, a gun, running down the streets, shooting robotic scorpions. Come on, that is freaking awesome. Sorry for my language. I love it. I mean, I was out in the front room watching it with my mom, and she was like, holy snap, you know? And now, to answer a question. Now, me and Mom were talking about it. Well, why didn't they mind wipe Nikola and Edison? Mom basically said this. Edison knows how to keep his mouth shut. He's not going to tell anybody that he ended up in the loony bin. Hence, Nikola, he doesn't keep his mouth shut. He'll tell the world. Hence why what happens to him. Let's see what else I have on my list. Oh, the intro for him and how he met the doctor. Brilliant. Love the little bits about Graham and Ryan. I call them the new comedy duo. Let's see what else we have here. And I do love how it stops just enough. Like you'll be like, action, action, we're on the train, action, action. And then all of a sudden it stops just enough to get the plot going. As Tim would say, exposition. Talk. Okay, now it's time for the action. Then we're going to slow it down again to keep it moving. I had no idea that was Ronnie. Okay, no idea that was Ronnie under that that's prosthetics. Look awesome for one. And did you notice the close up when she went like this? That was really good. And I love it I loved it because you saw the what do you call them? The scorpions. Oh, that was beautiful. Yeah, CGI was a little bit bad, but hey, look. A little bit bad, a lot awesome.
Okay. All right, let's keep on moving. Let's head over to Beefhead.
This was the first outing for a new writer. Not bad. Like Tim said, fine, I think is the best description for it. What I think is a bit of a middling story has been lifted by Robert Glenister, and Goran Visnik's acting ability. For me, they outshone everyone else in this episode. The story is still a little bit fast and loose, to be honest with you. That's the only thing. There's a lot of people in this, and trying to find everything to give everything to do is tough, to be honest with you. The Tesla's assistant, she really, you could have skipped that and had more Edison and Tesla. Same with the companions, to be honest with you, the fam. They're not really cutting it. There are too many people there to really be functionable. And if I'm honest, I'm getting a bit of Graham fatigue, if I'm honest, because just having him there as the comic relief each week, it's just getting to be a bit samey, to be honest with you. I don't know what that I'm struggling with. I did enjoy this. Don't get me wrong. I didn't like the music this week. I found it quite frustrating and overbearing at points, and too much on the nose. It's sort of like, well, yeah, this is the sad, dramatic part, and it's like too heavy on it for me. Like a couple of years, like Neo was just saying as well, the standout scene I think is between Tesla and the Doctor. That bit where they're talking, they're still heavy on the info dump. To be honest with you, I would have preferred it if you had restaged the start of it, because I got the Colin Baker factory vibes with the railings at the start, to be honest with you. It would have been better. That actually took me out of what Connor was saying was an immersive world at the start. And although the CGI was a bit ropey on the Scorpions, the makeup was great, but the costume they gave her was bad, because all I could see was a tyre strapped to her shoulder, and that took me out of it as well. It's sort of like the outline is good and it's there, but it just doesn't seem to be fleshed out because there's too much going on, or too many people they're trying to spread it out across. Because I can't understand the motivations of the Skithra, that's hard for me to manage as well. It's very, very busy. There's a lot going on. You can still have an action-based episode like this, but maybe simplify it without having to have too many action set pieces to it. You can still have drama, you can still have action, but simplify it. It's overly complicated than it needs to be. With regards to what Connor was saying with Jodie, that's the frustrating thing that I'm finding with Jodie Whittaker now. It's not a case of her gender or anything like that, but having to accept that she doesn't necessarily have the same presence as Connor was saying, and having to just say, yeah, she's like not 100% there, is frustrating when we're nearly halfway into a second series. So, to be honest with you, yeah, I can see points that are really good, but unfortunately, it's at points inconsistent. Now, do I say that's the writing? I don't know. It's hard. I find myself getting frustrated at points, because when the circle never gets stitched up fully, and that's the thing that I find most frustrating. You're 80% there, but you're not getting that final push to get to the 100%. It was good. It was okay. It didn't have to do much, to be honest with you. You could have played the opening credits and you've already been having a better episode than last week. So it was a step up, but there's still room for improvement, and I hope it happens, because we're nearly at that halfway point.
Okay, let's move forward. Wow, I got hands shooting up. Okay, let's go through those real quick. Okay, let's start with Paul. What did you have to say, Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to endorse something what William said about the historicals coming back to being pure historicals and no sci-fi. I'd actually love that to happen, because you think about Marco Polo, Reign of Terror, Aztecs, Romans, they're all brilliant stories. So I'd love that to happen, and it would also mix it up a bit. As I think Terrence Dicks and Barry Letts have said in a few interviews, that's what they wanted, to have a mix of things. And also with that, I'd like them to do episodes again, like I forget which way around it is, Heaven Sent or Hellbent, the first one, where he's just on his own in the castle. Like that, episodes like that are a bit different but interesting. And maybe just inside the TARDIS, that kind of thing.
Okay, DWC?
Things were coming to my head again. One thing that I kind of annoyed about with the Skithra was that the Queen was the only one who seemed to have a humanoid form, whereas the others were scorpions, and this was never fully explained why. All I was thinking was, so is it only the females that are humanoid? Are there other humanoids? What are there other queens for that matter? But that's the only thing that annoyed me. One thing that I really enjoyed in this, because it's something that surprisingly doesn't happen in Doctor Who and much, and it's really weird though. But of course, Edison and Tesla, they got to see inside the TARDIS, and this is something that you rarely get, weirdly, with historical episodes or just anything really all the time. You rarely have people come into the TARDIS, and they also did it in a way that I kind of liked from Pyramids of Mars. I can't remember who the character was that came in and saw it, but he's admiring the TARDIS, saying like it's H.G. Wells. Then the Doctor shows what's happening with what will happen if they let Zutek get away, and suddenly it's all business. And again, they did it this way again. It was saying they admired the TARDIS, but then it was all business, and that's always something I like. Always like to see new faces come, especially historic faces, coming to see the inside of TARDIS. And I just wish they do more of that. It's annoying though.
Okay, Connor.
A familiar sort of evil of any Doctor Who episode could have emerged, I think, at the beginning of this, because the sonic screwdriver was being used to hell in the first 15 minutes. And then it kind of twisted on its head, and then at the end we got something what I would call a satisfactory ending, where actually something different was used, and even better, one of Tesla's own contraptions really was used to defeat the monster, the Skiffer. I'm glad that they didn't do the magic wand sonic screwdriver fixes all route, which I actually thought for a great amount of the episode was going to happen because of just how she was scanning everything. And I'm not sure if that's even possible when she zaps the thing on the roof and it falls down on that villain's head. I thought oh God, here we go. She's just going to use a sonic screwdriver on everything, and then there's going to be no story really to tell. So yeah, I am actually one of the points of the episode I think is that I'm thrilled about is that they did avoid overusing the sonic screwdriver after a certain point.
Okay, Philip.
Sorry, just trying to find things. Two things, right? First things first, right? Because of the fact that we saw this what do you call it, the Silurian blunderbuster thing or gun thing. Is that probably why people think they're Sea Devil, because that was in use in the story, and that's where the mix-up is coming from? That's what I'm wondering. Outside of this thing, right? The second thing is, how Tesla died poor. Couldn't the Doctor be nice and say, look, here's a bunch of money, go and patent your stuff and make some money? That would have been a nice ending, I would have thought, but that's not how history happened with him. But it would have been nice if she did that and said, look, I'll give you a load of money, go and patent your stuff and be rich.
So what you're saying is, Phil, is never mind Tesla. When she was Matt Smith, he took him back to the future and said, "Oh, by the way, this is how you were perceived by people. Now the fact that you're Nick Tesla, you're just a prick." Is that what you said?
No, I just thought it would be nice, because we all know he died, because like she said, he died penniless, and it's a sad story for him.
Yep.
So
and the actual building, yeah.
Yeah, but can they just turn it on its head and give him a nice little happy ending?
No, because that's not how it happened.
No, it's changing history.
I know, but she's always changing history, that woman. But
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Or that guy, well, whatever she is, tranny. I don't know. But I see what you're saying though.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, Graham, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's my turn. As gone by the consensus of most of the group, this was a vast improvement on last week. I'm not going to make any bones about it. I do prefer historicals more to the modern day stuff. When it comes to diving into the future, that's hit and miss for me. The Witchfinders for last year, as much as the last year was so pulverising for a lot of folk, the Witchfinders for me is a guilty pleasure now, and I quite gladly embrace that. this one tonight was very, very enjoyable. 50 odd minutes. The guest cast was solid. My only gripe really was the whole supposed opposition with Edison and Tesseract. I mean, could have been divulged more, possibly, but at the end of the day, we all both know where Edison ends up and where Tesseract ends up. So, c'est la vie.
Okay, AJ.
Yeah, I'm really miffed by the fact that Ryan and Yaz do not know who Tesla is, despite the fact that Tesla is probably one of the biggest, more approaching companies in the world right now, named after Nikola Tesla. Also, with the Skithra in the human form, they're chasing after the Doctor and Tesla and all that. They're using the Silurian gun, yet they can generate electrical charges and kill people with them. Why use a gun?
Because they like.
Sorry, Brian. Yep.
I said because they like it. No.
Yeah. How dare you question the wisdom of the showrunner? Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving. Texas Tim.
Well, to AJ's point, today's education system is not very good anywhere in the world. So I'm not surprised that they don't know about Tesla, because they weren't taught about it in school. More often than not, at least, especially here in the States, they don't teach civics or history that much anymore, or politics, unless until you take those classes when you get into college. So, I mean, as far as what you learn in grade school, you're not going to learn about stuff like that. My point was, though, that I get what people are saying about Jodie's, because I found her a bit grating at the beginning of this, too. And I think it's in the writing as well, because it seems like I know the Doctor is a fan of historical characters, but the way she was just gushing and gushing and gushing for like the first 5 minutes over Tesla, and it was just like, okay, since when is somebody who's a ancient alien from Gallifrey so concerned with the comings and goings and doings of historical figures from a few centuries ago or whatever? I mean, it seems like that it's a bit much. I mean, it's one thing for her to understand and know the history of that character, that person, but to go on and on and on like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread is just a bit much. I think that's what I found. And I mean, you could say that's Jodie, or you could say it's in the writing, but I think she does need to tone it down a little bit, I guess. I don't know. I mean, this excited puppy routine is sometimes just takes you out of it a little bit. I don't know what she needs to do to make herself come across as a more serious Doctor. I don't know. I mean, but they need to do something with it.
Okay, let's go to Josh.
I disagree with the whole Tesla and like the Doctor basically gushing over him. I don't know if it was just how it came across, because I only saw the episode one time, but I just really like the whole how Tesla had all these ideas. Like I said earlier, you were right. Like I said earlier, how he had all those ideas and people didn't take him seriously. Like, it was a really good dynamic between the Doctor and him as far as that's concerned. But one thing I didn't like is, I didn't really care for the sci-fi element of this, because it was kind of poorly, I probably just need to rewatch it, but I don't even remember why I should even care about the alien race. It was just kind of oh, I'm a bad alien, I'm gonna kill the Earth for no reason, and you have to be scared. And I was like, why do I even care about these aliens for? But that was pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah, one thing before we move forward. One of the greatest sayings I've ever heard is that history is a group of fables that educated people tend to agree upon. And you only hear about like Edison and all that because he was more popular. Also, you know, he invented the light bulb and all that, but you never hear about Tesla, at least not until, you know, a little bit further on. And like, to give you a clear example, just off the top of my head, you've all heard about Paul Revere, right? The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. He rode 19 miles. He got arrested. Spent the night in a British stockade, but you never hear about the guy who rode 250 miles. His name was Israel Bissell. He went across like 4 or 5 states. Don't hear about him though, do you? So it's kind of weird though how we have all these people who tend to get forgotten by history, yet you've got these popular figures who are so well established like Thomas Edison. And the fact is, one of my favorite jokes out there right now is, you know, what happens if your Tesla car gets stolen? You report it as an Edison? But okay, let's move on. Lady Neo.
Okay, I know everybody's complaining about the aliens in this episode. Well, come on. We've got Doctor Who historicals before. You had what? Bees in one. You had, was it Rose was in one with Charles Dickens, and that was Alien. You know, you got historicals with aliens in it. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I love you all dearly. Get over it. It's there. I love every one of those episodes, maybe. Maybe some more than others. But this one, it worked. It worked beautifully. Now, on to the other part I was saying. Now, I absolutely love the bickering between Nikola and Edison. And I love the part, most of all, is when Nikola got onto the TARDIS and he picked it up exactly. The whole bigger on the outside thing. That was brilliant. He knew exactly what knobs to turn on the TARDIS console. Come on. If he was alive now, I'd hug that man. But anyways, awesome. And I think I only have maybe one question, but I don't know if he gets with her at the end. Is she his assistant, right?
Yeah, in this episode.
Oh, assistant. Okay. I don't know if they become him.
He never was ever married to anybody in history.
Okay. That works. That works for me. Thank you.
Also, a quick note about the Skithra. When you all were talking, the first image that popped up in my head about the Skithra is Star Trek: The Next Generation. Anybody here remember a race called the Packlids? They weren't exactly the sharpest tools in the shed, but they were riding around in spaceships built from other people's technology, and they stole Jodie from the Enterprise because they had just picked up these weapons and they had no idea what to do with them, and their ship was broken. So that's who the Skithra kind of are. They're parasites. They don't get along on their own. They just kind of steal everybody else's stuff, kind of like a certain historical figure we've mentioned. They get along. Okay.
It's kind of weird that they do that, but they don't know how to bloody fix it on things. It's weird. Why would you do it? You don't know how to fix it.
Simple, because that way they don't have to do it themselves. You have to love them. Okay, let's go to Beef. Beef, I can't hear a word you're saying.
One thing I'm pleased that they didn't do this week, which would have been a too easy trope, I think, to fall down, would have been to make Edison completely bad. I do think, as much as there were aspects of him that you didn't like, they did actually counterbalance it at a point where you have all the needless death of the extras in the factory. And he said, you know, I need to tell their families, you know, I know all these guys, whether they're my employees or not, you know, they still had families and everything like that. So I like that. They did avoid going down that easy route of, you know, white capitalist guy and everything like that is bad and everything like that. So I think that was good that they did do that. One of the things, I don't know if anyone else felt the same way, though, is that, you know, obviously Tesla has responded to the signal and everything like that. They've sent this probe, which for some reason then has decided to scan the entirety of Earth's history. So Stonehenge and everything like that. You don't really need Earth's history if you're looking for a mechanic, in essence, which is what they were looking for in this point. So I was sort of that's a couple of things that were just jarring with me. I get that they're repurposing technology. They're taking it, they're adjusting it, repurposing it. So they could do that with the probe. Why to choose Earth? I don't know. Is it more locally? But if they want to get themselves up and running, they're still able to get to Earth, and they're still able to use the cloaking thing. What are they going to do? Because I would have rather it have just been a straightforward, well, yeah, we're here to take over your planet, and we need someone to get the things up and running. That was the thing. I think that was the point that was missing, is why are they doing what they're going to do? And I would have liked to have had more of the tortured element to Tesla as well, because I think that was the thing that got jumped through really quickly because of the pace of the episode, which was, well, I can sacrifice myself and go with them and save the rest of the planet. Oh no, chin up, mate. Don't worry, we'll work something out. And it sort of took away that element to it. The pace of too many set pieces rushed the things that shouldn't have been rushed and made other bits longer than they needed to be. So I wish that it had been perhaps better structured.
Okay, William.
Well, Beef hit it in the head, but that was one of my questions, is that how did these beings are taking technology from other races and all that? How they know how it's used? We saw the cloaking device. Well, they must have got that from somewhere. How did they stole it, whatever? So that means either they have some knowledge or some way, because they connected it to the ship to cloak the ship. Not and they had that little probe to see the history of that. So why didn't they use the probe to find the history of every technology they'd been stealing to see how it works, instead of using them trying to find an Earthman who we know in history maybe has a very great imagination for that we now use a lot of his stuff, his ideas, but why it makes no sense how come they couldn't use it themselves like that, or find a way using the probe to see how that technology that they acquired works. Because considering they had that little what the doctor used, that thing that recharges itself after a certain time, and you see it thrown around, it wasn't used for nothing else. That could easily been used by the aliens for something else, but they just store everything around, not aware of what it's good for. So let me a little bit perplexed. And Neil was asking about Tesla. He never got, even though we find at the end how he was poor. He felt that no woman was worthy of his love, considering he spent so much time with his ideas and trying to invent like that. That's why he never married anybody, which is a sad thing, because the way history describes him, that he was like 6'4", maybe 150 pounds, and he was a handsome guy. So I'm shocked that he never got married. At least when he was young, like that, I was shocked that he never got married.
Well, one quick analogy before we move on that I can think of is, how many people own a car that's less than, say, a few years old? Now, you're driving that car around, but with these new cars, what are your chances you could fix it if it broke down? You have to remember, everything is so complicated now. Like anybody, used to be back in the day, you'd buy a car, pretty much anybody could fix it. It was pretty easy, carburetor, but that's no problem. These days now you got electronic fuel injection, you got computerized controls, you've got GPS and all that. But here's the thing, if any of that breaks down, you really think you could fix it?
Yeah, but aren't those improvements?
Yeah, but the thing is, if it broke down, could you fix it? No, you got to go to a mechanic, a specialist, anything like that. I think that's the same thing with the Skithra. They've got all this stuff. They're just smart enough to hit the on button and hit the old press play on the iPod, but they have no idea how it works. And that's what I liked about it. Is the fact is, this could happen. You never know. Well, all right, let's go back to AJ.
Just about the orb and how it scanned the planet. I think they were scanning human technology since the dawn of man and seeing how they progressed and why they progressed so quickly so they could sort of incorporate Tesla's ideas into their stolen tech. Also, towards the end of the episode, I'm kind of ticked off that Jodie's director didn't go up to Edison and just check his pockets to make sure he didn't nick something out of the TARDIS. I mean, knowing him, he's got at least 3-4 pockets full of something. And why wasn't Tesla scared of the Skithra Queen when he first sees her? Like, he's in the alien spaceship. It's a monster, and he's staring face to face with it, and he's like, hi.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Hey, Graham.
You know what? That's a fair point to an extent, AJ, but again, I don't want to belittle anybody's point of view when it comes to this show, because everybody's entitled to their point of view. Why was this happen? Why did that happen? Why was this? Blah, blah, blah. It's a TV show. Sometimes you've just got to suspend your disbelief. I get it. There's got to be a rhyme and reason behind the majority of things in this show, but this show has been living for 56 years, and hell, how many times have we not been given an answer to? Sometimes you've got to run with it and just get drunk. Fucking bye. Thank you.
Okay, Connor.
A few points. My US geography is shoddy, but
what?
What? My US geography is shoddy. Is Niagara Falls near New York City or wherever
It's upstate.
It's upstate. It's on the border between Canada and America.
Yeah, it's towards Buffalo, ain't it, or somewhere around that area?
Right, because to me, it didn't make sense that like the very first shot was Niagara Falls, and then it only gets mentioned once.
That's
5
where
minutes.
he was historically, right?
That's because I think it was a green screen shot, to be honest with you.
Connor, half of Niagara Falls in New York, the other half's in Canada.
Yeah, because this was filmed in Bulgaria for the most part. So
yeah, it was just to me, as someone that isn't knowledgeable on that much on US geography, it didn't make sense to me that like Niagara Falls didn't appear again. Really, that was the point. Jodie, I liked the point that Beef mentioned earlier when all the factory workers were kind of killed, and she kind of just stepped over their bodies like, we don't have time for this. That was weird. That was kind of like a new facet of her Doctor that we haven't seen. I think it was that kind of almost like Capaldi-esque, I think you could call it, where it's kind of like, they're just collateral sort of to the story. And I'm not sure what's been going on, because I don't believe that this is even the same director. Since last week, when establishing the villains, they've been doing some strange editing trickery, because there's like all these shots, like the quick cuts, and it's strange. It's great, but it's a strange way of establishing a villain. And they seem to be kind of like taking more experimental routes, I think, with the way that they're framing shots and directing the episodes. There was a few kind of like, there was one scene where it was Yasmin, and the whole background behind her was kind of blurred, and then it kind of like came into focus. It's these little things that like you notice that you've never really seen before in Doctor Who, and to be honest, it just adds an extra sort of layer to the episode, really, just to have something interesting to look at and to see the way that some of these directors like Jamie Stone and Lee Haven Jones so far have kind of taken with Doctor Who, especially now that they're filming with these anamorphic lenses and it looks very cinematic and very movie-esque all the time. So that's just one thing I noticed really about it.
Okay, back to DWC.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to point out that sort of grabbed me, because I've talked about this before with Doctor Who, and the Skithra Queen. I can never remember the name of the actress who played her, but she seems to have been suffering from the same thing that a lot of one-off villains seem to have, which is really hamming up their performance. And this is the thing that still gripes me with a lot of the one-off villains. I'm thinking, can't you just be like Lenny Henry and play it a bit more sinister or straighter? I genuinely don't understand what is it with the directors that seem to have this thing where they seem to ask their cast to just really ham up their performance when playing a villain, because we know she's good. She's been in Sarah Jane Adventures. We know she's a good actress.
Yeah, amongst many other things she's been in since then. Yeah, she's been really finding work, Anjali Mahindra. Okay, let's go back to William.
Here's a funny question. How come near the ending of the episode, nobody went up to Edison and say, your employees are all dead because you were in communication with the Queen? Because when she went down to Earth, she knew Edison. They knew each other. So like some of the disaster that happened like to his employees was on him, and nobody brought it up. Like, wow, nobody bring that up. I said that's weird. I know you notice it was a quick talk, and like Connor said, it was cut in a certain way that you almost like it passed by you. But I remember that scene. That his employees are dead because of him, not by Tesla in his dreams. It was him because he was in communication with her. I said that's weird. I said, and it was nobody.
Back to Neo.
I wanted to answer your question, AJ. Remember you said why wasn't he scared? It's Nikola Tesla. He's curious. He's probably looking at her, looking at the ship, thinking about 4,000 or 5,000 things he could create from it. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if he took something.
I accidentally hit the wrong button, went off to our screen. Okay. All right, back to AJ.
Just on Doctor Who commentator's comment, the Queen, with her acting, was hamming it up because of the prosthetics on her face. You can't see the little nuances of the facial expressions. So they have to express it more with their acting and their voice. Same with Dan Starkey when he plays Strax. Same deal.
Okay, back to Graham.
That's a fair point, AJ. Well done for bringing it up. For me, Tessa Lecter and the whole Edison thing, they done well. I mean, I get, I've seen criticism now, why was their minds no wiped and all the rest of it. And whereas when it comes to Neil Khan and Ada Lovelace, that was the case. And that does have some water. Why was that the case? Why have you got two historical figures who were wiped, or shall we say mind raped, and you've got these two who were left to their own devices? Only Chris Chibnall knows that, and along with the subsequent writer of both episodes. But it just gives me, you, and the guy next door more things to bitch about on YouTube, and hence, getting some ad revenue. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, whatever.
Okay, back to Philip.
I did. Everybody did notice, but they certainly did a lot with the TARDIS interior in regard to disco lighting system. This episode, it was blue, it was that color, it was this color. I'm like, okay, well, they're going through the whole range of it this week, so that was kind of good use of the lighting system.
Yeah, that's the new system they put in this year, because the new guy came on when Arwell Wynne Jones went over to do Dracula. I can't remember the guy's name to save my life. I'll have to look it up later. So it's a new set designer that's on this year. And one thing I keep saying, stay with the blue. I like the blue better. Okay, Connor.
Yeah, DWC's comments did remind me actually to shamelessly plug her in Bodyguard, because she is a very good straight actress and she can do sinister. So yeah, maybe I think that even though Mahindra's performance overall was very good, I think, yeah, they should have played it a bit straighter. But I guess like AJ said, maybe the prosthetics didn't really allow for that sort of nuanced emotion to really come through. And also, I think that Doctor Who has never really been the sort of high echelons for absolutely amazing acting anyway. So to ham it up is kind of like, buy for the buy at this point. Like, you have to expect that, there's going to be these big names. Or, well, she's not a huge name, but familiar names. So people like Lenny Henry and Stephen Fry are going to come in and they are going to ham it up a little bit, because I think that's just the way that the show's really been written and made throughout its entire history, really.
At least they didn't look like the giant rat from Talons. Okay. Well, we've gone on this for a bit over, about an hour now. So let's go ahead. We'll bring this to a close. Let's rate it and put it to bed. Starting from the bottom, Texas Tim out of 10. What do you give Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror?
I'm going to give it an 8. It was good. It could have been slightly better, but it was fine.
Okay, Philip.
You know what? This was quite fun for me in certain ways. I did enjoy it. It's a bit of a step up now. I'm going to give it a generous. I'm going to say 8.5. That's generous for me, I reckon.
Okay, Elijah.
For a really good historical story, I'm going to give this one an 8.5.
Okay, AJ.
Sorry. For me, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I mean, the Doctor trying to high five Nikola Tesla, seriously.
Okay, Beef.
I'm going to give it a 7, to be honest with you. Glenister and Visnick carried this, I think, and took an average story and made it better through them being in it. It's further highlighted, I think, that there needs to be a bit more quality control on the story writing and the TARDIS. There's too many secondary characters at the moment. So I will give it a 7. I think what it did highlight that there was such a big tonal clash between last week, where everything is bad, 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 and going for an optimistic outcome at the end of this one. It was a big tonal clash. So it did highlight the downfallings of last week massively as well.
Okay, Lady Neo.
I have to give this one a 10 out of 10. I was entertained. I did not want to move from the screen. And I really want to see it again, because I can't get Thomas Edison and Yasmin running down with those spiders. I mean, not spiders, but robotic scorpions right behind them. Come on. It's awesome.
Okay, Josh.
I'd probably give this one probably like a 6.5, just because I really did like how they portrayed Tesla and all that. But again, just the subject matter, kind of, I couldn't really hold that much interest in, but it was a good story overall.
Okay, William.
Well, like I said before, it is much better than last week's episode. I'm going to give this one a 7.5. But they need it when they come to historical. They need to take out the science fiction, just do a straight historical one. We haven't had one in such a long time.
Okay, I think the last pure historical we had would be, I think it was Black Orchid.
Black Orchid.
Yeah, it's been a while. Okay, Graham.
I agree. Well, I'll give it a 7.5. I can't grumble with what it is. I get where people have their criticisms, and I get that not necessarily every story is for everybody, but compared to last week, this was a vast step up, and kudos to the guest cast.
Okay, Connor.
I'll give it a massively generous Jodie Whittaker era 7. Other rating systems may apply.
All right, Bo.
I'm giving it an 8. It was a really good episode.
Okay, DWC.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 7, and to go on AJ's point about high-fiving Tesla. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I hate high fives so much that when someone tries to high-five me, I challenge them with a handshake.
And back to Colin Baker. Paul.
Yeah, this gets another 10 for me. Entertained me all the way through. I liked it how it's a good mixture of like tension bits, exciting bits, and good dialogue as well. I especially liked the scene with Jodie and Tesla. That was quite a nice little scene. So yeah, another 10 for me.
This one I'm going to give an 8.5, which is, because, it could have been longer. I really wish sometimes they would go back to the 1 hour format, because there could have been a little bit more in there to help, steady the pace a bit. but at the same time, the scenes with Tesla, Robert Glenister as Edison, and especially that scene between, the Doctor and Tesla just really brought it up a notch. Plus the fact that this one was so much better than last week's. It really, really was. This was definitely a step up. Well, folks, don't forget to join us next week when we'll be back to do this again.
Brian, sorry to interrupt. Just a general query for the panel, all right? But before we end here, whether you think Jodie's portrayal of the Doctor is good, bad, or indifferent, we are, what are we? We're 4 episodes into our second season. I'm curious, on a roundtable discussion, has she improved somewhat?
Yes.
A little.
Definitely.
I would say she has to a certain level. She has a lot. There's a lot more to her than what there was last year. I'll give you that. I'll give her that.
That's well, in which case, Chibnall is solely but surely doing his job. That's all you're looking for. Okay, folks. There we go.
No, she's just done her homework. That's all she's done. Is her fucking homework.
Did you say fucking?
Oh, sorry.
That's what. Don't worry about it. There's going to be a language warning at the beginning of this podcast.
Okay, right. There we go. Okay, yeah.
You see,
I was just curious. Sorry, guys. Okay, yeah.
I just want to say,
I think the performance is really good.
Yeah, I just want to say, if I'm of the belief that if YouTube is going to make me mark my videos as not suitable for kids, then I will.
And the kids won't fucking watch. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
All right. So I have to say, they've definitely improved. They've stepped up the game a bit this year. As I've explained to multiple friends of mine, I think the problem was last year they wanted to balance things out and lean it towards younger viewers.
Yep.
They went a little too far towards younger viewers, is what I think.
Yeah, it did. You're right.
And this year they're stepping up the game a bit because now that we've got you on board, maybe we can keep you. But
I get that, fandom are entitled to their opinion, but I'm sorry, it just can't be a simple case of this actress is shit when she keeps getting work.
Again, I think if there is a problem, sometimes it's the writing as well. It's not.
I'll give you that, Tim. Yeah.
Ironically, this is a perfect episode for younger viewers.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's bring this to a close before we go really crazy.
Okay, there we go. Yep. My apologies. Yep.
Yeah, this was your bonus minute. Okay.
We're all already crazy.
Yeah.
So everyone, please, out there in podcast land, if you're watching this, they should be up hopefully this Wednesday. Please come watch it live. Well, why am I saying that now? Okay, so until then, take care.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good one. See you on the flip side.